Okay, we're ready to go. Good afternoon and good morning for those of you out west, and thank you for joining today's webinar entitled Remote Collaboration and Creativity Reimagined for the Next Normal. I'm Rob McDonald, Portfolio Marketing Manager at Ricoh Canada. Today's session is focused on the remote collaboration challenges many organizations are facing while millions of us have been at home, working from home. The team presenting will share their insights and analysis based on several very recent work from home studies, as well as what reimagined more meaningful collaboration could look like as Canadian organizations go beyond business continuity and into business resumption planning mode by future-proofing and taking full advantage of the opportunity to work from anywhere. Now, just a few quick housekeeping notes to deliver before we set off. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available via email over the next day. We very much encourage questions as they may occur to you throughout the webinar. All participants have been placed in listen-only mode, so if you wish to queue up a question, please make use of the chat feature that you will find located on the lower left corner of your screen. I will flag those questions for the team to address at the tail end, as we've allowed some time for Q&A. Should we run right to time, we'll ensure we contact you personally following the session with answers from Tatiana, Erwan, or Av. So without further delay, I will now hand over proceedings to Tatiana Maguire, who will kick things off. Tatiana?
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to be talking about There we go. We are going to be talking about changing meetings, what we're hearing out in the marketplace, how we navigate that next normal, what tomorrow's meetings could look like, how we can reimagine creativity. We have some additional resources for you, and we'll also have a Q&A at the end, as Rob mentioned. I think we all know the current pandemic has created a massive shift in business priorities. Regardless of your business size, today companies are facing similar challenges. Employee health and safety and business continuity are now top of mind. As we know, most business campuses are 50 to 90% empty, especially in those high-risk urban areas. Remote working is today's norms, so companies are looking for better ways to effectively communicate with these workers. We expect workers to start coming back on a staggered basis over the next 90 days based on local government guidelines. And so organizations also have to focus on pursuing distancing strategies within their facilities. Many companies have also said they will support an increase in the number of remote workers and a reduction in their real estate holdings. With the norm now being fragmented workforces, companies need to find easier ways for these anywhere employees to collaborate effectively. We know meetings are going to change. In the past, meetings you had were mostly face-to-face. In some instances, there were people in a meeting room and perhaps one or two dialed in. I'm sure we've all been in that situation. Sometimes you're the only one on the phone, and multiple people are in a room at this in-person meeting. Your voice was not heard as you tried to interject into the conversation. You sometimes felt like a second-class citizen. Your engagement was not equal to the people in the room. You felt, as I said, like a second-class citizen. Now with remote working, video calls, all participants are equal. Every voice is heard. And meetings now, they've really become a true democracy. So what are businesses and home workers saying about this current environment? One of the many reports tracking Canadian sentiments, worker sentiments today, is the Maru report. Results are taken from Maru's ongoing, nearly daily tracker of key elements relating to how consumers feel, behave, and think about the COVID pandemic. When addressing home workers, Most respondents say they feel productive at home as much as in the office, and they're hoping that organizations will look to having a more hybrid approach to worker location. In April, the Leger report polled a group of Canadians about their current working conditions and what their hope was for future working conditions. And again, we see a desire for more flexible locations and working policies. 75% of those surveyed are looking for more flexibility to work from home more often. So what are businesses saying? Well, according to Gartner, they did a survey in March, and they surveyed CFOs and finance leaders. Nearly 3 of the 4 CFOs plan to shift at least 5% of previously on-site employees to permanently remote positions post-COVID-19. And in the news, I'm sure you've heard, I know I have, there are large organizations who have now made announcements that they are significantly looking to reduce those real estate holdings globally. Employee safety and budgetary pressures are forcing organizations to rationalize their infrastructure footprint. I wonder, are your sentiments the same? We've done research here at Ricoh, and I'd like to pass this back to Rob to get a poll of your sentiments of working. Rob?
Thanks, Tatiana. Yeah, given that we have a large group on the call today and that telecommuting is very much top of mind these days, we'd like to gauge your post-lockdown preferences. The poll is open, so please go ahead. We'll open it up for about 20 seconds. Ten more seconds. We'll see if we can get more answers generated here. Okay, I think we're pretty good. Okay, so this is falling pretty much in line with what we're seeing with wider sources. So that's pretty interesting stuff. Tatiana, I'll throw it back to you. Thanks.
Thanks. So we heard that workers in general are comfortable with working at home, and we saw your results as well. As many businesses start to look to permanently transition some workers to home, that's good news. This benefits all parties in multiple ways. As employees, we gain flexibility, savings, time, no more commutes. And in today's climate, peace of mind knowing that we control the cleanliness of our workspace at home. I think most of this would lead to better job satisfaction. Employers also gain great savings through less real estate, less sick leave, and with the video conferencing that we work with today, there's a great opportunity to decrease travel spending. Employees are happier, and overall, productivity should increase, as you heard from some of those sentiments. For those organizations focused on environmental and sustainability efforts, having remote workers contributes to that mission positively. So, what is that next normal? Are we all going to be working from home? Are we in the office? What will it look like? At Ricoh, we went out and we asked some of the experts. For instance, Kate Lister is president of Global Workplace Analytics, and she believes that in most organizations, we will see that hybrid approach moving forward. And this seems to match the home worker and business sentiments that we're hearing at Ricoh Canada. So the next normal mindset is work is something you do, not somewhere you go. And I think we've all heard that adage before. But this does shift the thinking. It changes how priorities will be cascaded for organizations, especially those worried about the negatively impact to productivity. So if location is truly irrelevant, then companies need to provide a few things for employees for business continuity. They absolutely need access to the network. And the businesses will need to embrace multiple communication channels, allowing employees to collaborate and communicate in their preferred style. And finally, a results-based employee measurement strategy will need to be instituted. The theme here is it's not about, can I see the employee working at their desk or in the office? It's really about what has the employee accomplished. Global Workplace Analytics has just released a recent survey with results around worker satisfaction of activity performance. We find the results actually quite interesting. Workers are managing distractions better and feel the ability to be more innovative and creative at home, but there still seems to be a gap around satisfaction in collaborating with colleagues. Some managers are feeling a little uncomfortable and struggling with mentoring in remote circumstances. This could be driven really by that old ideology of, if I see you, I know you're working. But let's go back to that statistic for a moment that talked about how workers are feeling that something is lacking when trying to collaborate in a remote environment. Leah McCann from Rave's Pubs also noticed it. There seems to be something lacking in these video communications. The reality is this new normal really is not sustainable for a lot of people and for a lot of tasks that we do on a daily basis. Not every conversation or problem is going to be parceled into a video conference call. Not all complex problems can be solved in an allotted hour. Many researchers are already warning us that problem solving and creativity will suffer when teams are isolated from one another. So how do we ensure that the Anywhere team can be as effective as they were when they were that face-to-face team of old? How do we make sure that everyone continues to have the ability to contribute equally? In order for us to reap the rewards of transitioning to remote working without suffering from consequences, we will need to find a new balance. This balance has to take into account social interactions, create an environment where engagement between remote workers is cultivated, and use a whole new set of maybe hardware and software solutions that allow these remote teams to not only engage with each other, but to be as creative as if they were in the same room. Again, I am somewhat curious how you're feeling about that collaborating from home. Rob, can I ask you to do another poll with our audience, please?
Mm-hmm. You'll see the results on the questions up on the screen there. This one echoes the work activity performance chart you would have seen a few slides earlier from Tatiana from Global Workplace Analytics. This time we're asking our guests to be, a more personal question relating to not to your productivity yourself, but your connection to your colleagues and your ability to perform as a team since the lockdown. So we'll leave it open a little longer, another 10 seconds or so. Okay. So we're seeing, somewhat, it looks pretty similar, actually, strikingly similar. The a bit worse at home and noticeably worse at home match that slide. So interesting results. Thanks. Tatiana, I'll send it back to you.
Great. Thanks, Rob. So it sounds like the research we're doing is very much matching our audience. So we know that this hybrid model is our near future. So the most important thing is, how do we keep the meeting democracy, where we're all equal on that video call, how do we keep that meeting democracy in our virtual meetings, but still foster that in-person collaboration and creativity? I think it comes down to, we have to reimagine that home office. We have to reimagine remote meetings and how we as teams collaborate. To further explore this topic, I'd actually like to introduce my colleague, Erwin Legoux. He's the sales leader for Ricoh Canada's communication services. Erwin?
Thanks, Tatiana. So the COVID crisis has fast-forwarded a paradigm shift that was gradually happening. We've been exploring in this webinar how our meeting environments were not suited anymore to how meetings are running these days and how much that trend was here to stay. On the flip side, our existing video conferencing tools have not changed in decades. Every platform is identical in capabilities with maybe a tweak here and there for usability. None of them offers anything more than simple screen sharing and camera sharing. So if we're going to foster a remote team culture that results in efficiency, we need to really reimagine the meeting room. We're hearing a lot about remote meeting rooms, but it's more a virtual meeting room that we need to create. A virtual meeting room that will allow anyone, no matter where they are, to express their vision, visualize and share their ideas, and revise them during the meeting as input comes from others. This will allow them to be as creative remotely as if they were face-to-face in the same room. So our flip charts, dry erase board, glass walls, digital whiteboards were there in a physical boardroom to capture outouts, notes, calls to action. We had displays and projectors to show our presentations and documents. So we need a virtual wall where any of us in the meeting can virtually show documents, pin notes, write up important ideas, and interact with one another. On the table, we used to be able to share paper documents, follow along, or contribute on our laptops in a seamless and natural fashion. So we need a virtual table where anyone in the meeting can add content for the group to review, edit, and contribute to. And that can be easily shared back with the group once the meeting has ended. We basically need to convert our passive second-class citizens into active participants. The technology is there. We just need a bit of creativity and boldness to set it in motion. Through a simple universal user interface, employees will regain productivity and level of collaboration that they've lost when they went home to work there full time. We are convinced they will even exceed them. So I will now introduce you to Ava Tukuri, who is the CEO of Vizedo, and who will be illustrating this virtual meeting room concept with a few real-life examples. Av, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you very much. This is Av, and I've been working with my team for the last 10 years trying to figure out how would we reimagine how people communicate with each other. And what happened is that imagination has suddenly become reality. And what I want to show you is part of that imagination, how we must change for this new normal, and how this can already be part of the art of the possible. So first step, I want to let you know on this particular platform, what you're seeing is a low-res video sharing. The actual platform is full 4K, high-res, using all the latest Ricoh technologies. And next, this is just one more tool. By no means is this the complete solution, but this is the tool that works on Windows 10. It uses your data. There's nothing on the cloud. It's a physical application that lives on your premises, on your computer. It uses your security and user profiles. So nothing in your organization actually has to change. It's incredibly simple for IT to comply and deploy this. And what Reactive really does is it gives you three things. It gives you this digital table, a digital wall, and a digital room. And it allows you to manipulate content as if you're physically there in that room. And I'm going to start showing you some real-world use cases and what is that art of the possible. So first up, I'm going to go ahead and start off with a very simple legal scenario. It's a great use case because we all use a ton of documents and content during legal meetings and discussions. So here, the team is dynamically bringing up different type of documents. Doesn't matter if it's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, regardless of the file format, and we can very simply arrange them, structure them, present any one document, or review multiple documents side by side. Flip through pages as if you're handling that piece of data. the cool thing with this is now I can start inking directly into the document and marking it up. No more taking notes on the side. Everyone can see exactly what you're saying or doing. And the most important thing about this platform is it actually saves it back into the original format using a technology called native inking. And when you save this, we go ahead and time and date stamp it for easy archiving. So highlight, ink, add in information, and instantaneously you can save it back. It pushes it back to the repository, so there's no cluttered files everywhere. If you start it off on the cloud, it comes back to the cloud. And if you open that document back up at a later point in time, you'll see inside Word all of the ink has been embedded directly in as an editable object that could be moved, manipulated, deleted, and new versions being created, which means that you capture context, not just a bunch of notes on an email that relate to a document. So now let's say you're doing something even more difficult to accomplish, like you're brainstorming. Okay, so what we're now going to do is going to take this multi-page document, put it up on an infinite canvas, and we're going to very quickly rip apart every page out of this document. So it's almost like we're making a storyboard out of the contract. And what that does is it allows you to visualize the data, visualize all the pages, understand how things are moving and how they need to be manipulated. So here the team is taking that employment contract, making 6 individual pages out of it. And what we now want to do is restructure this contract and identify some of the gaps. So using interesting tools like the Smart Insert capability, you can physically move pages and content over and graphically draw out pages that you're now going to fill in. Now, the other thing with Reactive is it's just the ability to work with static documents, but dynamic content like web pages and video feeds and all sorts of things can be brought in. So here, we're going into the Employment Standards Act on the website, taking in paragraphs, updating it based on what the team feels. So in this particular real-world scenario, we went through a job description, we went through a posting, we went through contract law, and compiled all the information together and identified the weak spots where every individual on the team was able to engage and contribute, not be a passive observer. So another great use case that I want to show you now that shows you different type of features is a complex design environment. Now, designers find it very difficult to communicate because it's complex concepts, ideas, and you need to help your remote team visualize data. How do you make decisions? So here, it's an architect pulling up a bunch of different types of tiles, and you can click one button and arrange everything on your conference call. Now, Reactive actually processes transparency of images, so you literally can overlay transparent objects on top of each other and do very simple analysis like this to show to your end customer, is this what you're looking for? Rearrange everything. And even do something really complicated, like take 2 different designs, put them side by side, and absolutely show someone how they would compare and contrast. This is actually even difficult to do face-to-face, let alone on a remote conference call. Now, again, using Scribble's infinite canvas capability, you can capture really complex design decisions. How do you go ahead and do that? So now we can go ahead and take the floor plan, and we're going to update this floor plan with a number of renderings that clearly show to the customer what the final decision was. So in this particular graphic, we pulled up all of the content. We can start highlighting exactly what areas are representative of what images, and it's almost like creating a mood board. It's a decision document. Normally, you'd be typing this up for hours on Word documents, adding pictures together, sharing Google Docs, which is a very static and manual process, which slows down creativity, especially in a remote call. Now, the most interesting thing about Reactive is the ability for you to bring in any type of data. So far, I showed you web, documents, but now this is how we screen share. So screen sharing, the way video conferences do, is exclusive. Either you screen share or I screen share. That's not how Reactive works. Everybody's screen share is a piece of content on our canvas. So very simply, we used AirPlay to connect to Reactive such that the customer brought their iPhone in and is showing the designer the type of kitchens that they would like to go ahead and implement into the design. And now the architect is taking a screenshot of that, documented exactly what the decision was, and even paginates the entire area, as you can see now, and creates a page. And that page can be exported as a PDF and instantly shared back with all the meeting participants in order to ensure that there's no confusion. So what this does is, in a complex data environment, not only do you share data, but capture decisions, minimize mistakes, allows for simpler project management, greater customer satisfaction, regardless of the location of various teams. So one more example that I want to run through is marketing. All of us deal with a lot of data in marketing. You need to debate, argue, contrast, contribute. So in this particular demo, we're bringing in multiple screen share devices. Here's a phone, and at the same time, there's a laptop. This was our ISE planning session for 2021. So someone brought in their phone, and at the same time, their MacBook was also brought in. So you can see the floor plan together with the phone are tiled separately, and independent conversations can actually happen. So on one content piece, the floor plan is being figured out. On the other content piece, we're trying to figure out the structures to what's happening with that trade show. Simultaneously, other type of content, for example, various booth proposals, PDF, and images can also simply be brought in, not just devices. So here the team is exploring dynamically the different proposals, marking up, capturing questions in order to go ahead and maintain context. Now, Reactive actually, as I told you before, supports an infinite canvas, which means that you can articulate a particular project or a vision over many, many months. It's not just coming in for a minute, documenting a whiteboard, and it disappears. So here's 3 months worth of work that went into this particular Reactive ISE planning session. So you can zoom in, you can see a huge amount of detail. We can recap past meetings. We can pin up all sorts of media and content, whether it be videos, websites, booth proposals, rip out pages, and very quickly update information from today's session in order to allow that information also to be captured. So at the same time, the team is outputting all the checklists as to what they want to go ahead and identify with the booth proposal. And then they're going to go ahead and rearrange this canvas based on prioritization of what's actually occurring. So what Reactive does, because it's such a graphical environment, it requires engagement. It's not just a passive presentation. It takes those passive presenters and makes them be active participants, because you're not going back into your standard, let me read from a PowerPoint slide. It is, where do you want to move this? How do you want to move this? Do you agree with this? Are my notes relevant, etc.? Move, change, reimagine, paginate, and very quickly create outputs. So the whole idea for remote work to be elevated in our vision is we got to get rid of all the mundane tasks that slow down these meetings and reduce engagement. Oh, Bobby, you don't have that email. Let me go ahead and it's too large for you to check on. I tried to email it. Check your junk folder. Maybe it's too large. Let me send you a link. Please download it. Go ahead and get a copy of it. Now go ahead and flip through that slide deck. Oh, you want to capture information or decisions? Let me go ahead and type up email notes and then recirculate that back at the end of the meeting. All these mundane tasks which slow down creativity in a remote environment get eliminated. So in conclusion, we're just showing you 3 real-life examples, but there are dozens and dozens. It doesn't matter. Telemedicine, patient interaction, marketing, sales enablement, human resources, training, higher education, the list is endless. Arwan?
Thanks, Eb, for showing us a few examples of remote teams collaborations made real. This is really what Ricoh is about. Imagine and bring change. So in conclusion, there will be a time sooner or later when we will go back to the office. This will happen gradually with 15 to 25% of the employees in the office at all times. But the changes that are happening in our meeting that we've been exploring during this session are here to stay. Ricoh offers many different services that can help you navigate through those troubled times. from digital signatures to keep approval and contract workflows going, to visitor management, hot desking, and flexible office software to adapt your office, enforce safety guidelines, and make it easy for employees to find a working space for the day. If you have found this webinar valuable, along with our new Waterworks series, we'll happily continue the conversation at Collision from Home 2020. This year, Collision is pioneering a new sort of conference, fully remote and virtual, and we're going to have several Ricoh subject matter experts presenting and hosting sessions there, along with some fantastic speakers. A few of them are represented here. I will now hand it over to Rob for Q&A.
Thanks, everyone. I'm hearing Collision is going to have somewhere north of 30,000 people online, so that's going to be a very interesting event. I'll jump into questions. We have a few. The first one is, as a mid-sized organization with a lot of people that are not tech-savvy, how can we ensure adoption of new software or product like this? I can throw that to Av, I guess.
Oh, thanks. No, it's a great question. This is a question that comes up all the time. My organization is too slow to adopt. We have a lot of people who are antiquated or not tech savvy. And very quickly, I asked the first question. So are they picking up Motorola flip phones from the 1990s, or are they on smartphones? Obviously, they made an investment to become tech savvy. They are on social media platforms. And the reason really is that platform, why was technology adopted and not adopted? I find that in most organizations, technology gets adopted if the value proposition is clear and the user experience excels compared to what they used to do before. So simplify something, at the same time get more done and show that value, people will absolutely adopt. And that's what we found with Reactive so far is environment after environment. People, they think this is a gamification of that meeting. Wow, what took me 15 minutes before is only taking me a minute. And they've become the internal champions for the software, and we've been amazed at how quickly the technology has been adopted versus resistance to change.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's a great answer. Second question that we have deals with metrics, which is interesting. How can we measure productivity of remote meetings like the one you outlined for the long term? Maybe I'll throw that to Tatiana.
Sure. Measure productivity. Yeah. So, I mean, everything is measured today. From marketing to sales, everything needs to be measurable. Productivity is very difficult to measure. I do think there are a couple things, though, that we can look at. I've spoke about less clicks, right? If you have tools, whether it software, some sort of tool that allows you to do the same thing you did before faster, by removing some of those extra clicks and those extra download, upload, shares, that will automatically and organically give you better productivity. I think the other thing to look at is we talked about results-based measurement. And I think, that as well can show productivity flow forwards and backwards. So if you're basing those assessments of employees based on results and what they've accomplished, what projects, did they meet their deadlines, it can show that productivity level increasing. The last thing is, and Ab didn't talk about it, but I do know that further down on our roadmaps for collaboration software, we are looking to provide dashboards. So a dashboard that shows you, how many of your employees are using the software, how many minutes are they using it, gauging, the collaboration that you're seeing through the metrics of the software. So I think there's, a few things that you can use to see if that productivity is increasing. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Third question. I'm part of a small business with salespeople based all across Canada. Can I use this outfit for them for customer demonstrations from home? And there's a follow-up, is it affordable? I think we'll throw that to Erwan.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because we actually run into a scenario that is somewhat similar to that. It is indeed very difficult in a remote environment to maintain a high level of sales activity these days. And with most of the traditional performance indicators that we use in sales that are either obsolete or they are very difficult to measure. So I mentioned we run into a similar scenario. So we had a medium-sized company. They had about 15-ish some people in the field, and they were looking for ways to stay connected with their customer and prospects. And what they did is that they equipped all the salespeople with interactive whiteboards, personal ones, with a bunch of third-party cameras that could shoot from different angles, and also the collaboration software that Av was showing earlier. They basically recreated a showroom at home for each salesperson. And the interesting part in that is that they used their travel budget, so the budget that was assigned for travel expenses, to fund this project. And they found out it was sufficient to actually cover this investment over the course of a few months. So yeah, I think that's really interesting because we really need to find a way to better engage with customer in the specific function of sales as everyone is settling into that new normal. And I think what's interesting there in that example is that they managed to pivot quickly, right? They converted expenses into a milestone really investment for the future. And they also, I think, sent out a message that they were very agile and responsive, right? And moving forward, I think it's kind of a future-proof foundation as well, because we know that the situation we're in is here to stay, and that's something they can leverage to grow on in the future. Hope that answers your question.
It does. I've got another one that I'm going to leave open to any of you three, and here it is. My experience has been that people who are passive in person are also passive virtually. Everyone participates in meetings differently. Many need time to let ideas percolate before they're ready to jump in, and may even choose to hang back in a meeting with a meeting organizer after the meeting to completely flesh out more ideas. How do you suggest virtual meetings will continue to allow for people who process information this way?
Yeah, I can take that question.
Sure.
I think that's a very insightful question, and Reactive, the way we designed it, is to not change the way people think and approach meetings. And if you think about a face-to-face meeting, it's no different. So sometimes there's face-to-face meetings where I'm just listening, then we percolate, then we come back for a design meeting or a discussion meeting, or there could be follow-ups. And the problem that happens with traditional video conferencing meetings today is that structure is now broken, because the individual that's speaking, the individual that's the host who's controlling the screen share, controls the narrative. It's very difficult for someone to come in and say, no, go back 2 pages. No, not that. I meant to say 3. Go to your left, my left, not that paragraph. It gets very frustrating for people to debate, argue, and discuss. So having a forum where someone can pick up their mouse and keyboard and instantly share back eliminates that barrier. So the way I look at it is Reactive allows you to go back to the natural, normal way that you engage without these artificial host screen sharing barriers which constrict remote meetings today.
And I would add to what you just said that the fact that the meeting sessions are permanent also enable people who need a bit more time or more introvert to go back to it after the meeting is over. And maybe there will be another meeting about this, and where those new ideas will have been collected properly.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. So there's another question. I think this is more for Erwan. I think it speaks to how this packages. This is more of a Ricoh thing. Or Ricoh answer that. How does Reactive come with the software being used to demo we're seeing live now? So I think we just have to be more clear in terms of what we were showing on screen and what options there are, I guess. And I'll give that to Erwan, I guess.
Sure. So the presentation we were showing was using a different platform, and we had a number of videos that was showing that were made directly into Reactive. So if Reactive was used by all the participants today, then you would have access directly to the content that which we saw in video, including the video streams. Anything you want to add?
No, we are looking at this as being a solution. So everything that you saw was live. That was the software. That is absolutely the user interface and the features. So I think the question was that a live or was that a mock-up of the demo is the way I understood it, but that was the real live software.
Okay.
So just to clear for the audience, Rob, the Reactive Suite software is very much that, a suite. It is an ecosystem of software. So there are components within the suite that allow for brainstorming, for presentation. You saw that infinite canvas. So when you think about your Office products that you use today, you have Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, and each one of those is specialized for what you need to accomplish. And Reactive Suite is the same. There's the Stage, and there's Scribble, and there's new components coming on the roadmap. So it's an ecosystem to allow you to do that presentation, to brainstorm, to full creative collaboration and share.
Right. And there was another question sort of related to this, so I'll sort of conflate that. So we're essentially talking about sort of Microsoft Office type tools, but what else can be done with video? There's options with video? I think there was some, it may not have been as clear in the presentation, but there is a lot of options in terms of dealing with video. Maybe Ab, can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah. Reactive actually is a very powerful video discussion tool. You can bring in multiple videos, zoom inside, pause, fast forward, capture and rip out frames, ink on top of video, and save back annotations. One of the most complex things that I find in my marketing role is editing videos or discussing videos such that a team can take that input. And I'm always like, no, not at 5 seconds, but a little after 5 seconds on the bottom right-hand corner behind this. And all those millions of words that are required to describe that change can easily be compressed down to a very simple screenshot with an ink and outlining that gives you clarity. So there are powerful video capture and discussion tools built into Reactive.
Okay. Anything else to add? Rowan, Tatiana, you good?
Oh, good.
Okay. So there was another question. How do you deal with the fact that you can talk and think faster than inking on a screen? That might be another one for Ab, I think, in terms of the software.
Sure.
Performance or the latency.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The way I would look at talking and thinking is I think we're, as humans, hardwired for millennia to talk and think at a certain speed because that's what we've been doing for thousands of years. We've been writing. And there are many people who can absolutely think faster, but even keyboards, or I can guarantee you, managing multiple windows in a desktop where you're constantly dealing with drop-downs and GUI and interfaces and file save as dialog boxes is one of the slowest ways you can interact with technology. And that's one of the reasons that the touchscreen interface on the iPhone or the smartphone revolutionized how we communicate, because that actually elevated that computer experience into natural gestures, which are way easier for you to pinch and zoom and rotate with your two fingers versus going file, drop down, image, rotate 90 degrees, yes, no. So I would say that Reactive allows your teams to approach that think as fast as you can think and write as fast as you can write. And that's one of the most amazing aspects of whether you call it gamification or that user experience that captures a pretty large percentage of wasted time in remote meetings. And you don't realize until you go through a proper session, take yourself out as a third person and watch how much time is spent in clicking and moving through different interfaces in a remote meeting. And it's unbelievable how much faster a visual tool like this is. It'll never be as fast as you can think, but it'll be as fast as you can write, which is pretty damn good.
Okay. There was a follow-up question. It's a little bit fractured. It was about the hardware and how the hardware and the software work together. I'm not sure if we've addressed that clearly. I don't know if it's something we can readdress.
Sure. Ricoh has a complete solution. So the intention here is it's not a piece of software, it's not a piece of hardware. It's almost an entire appliance that works together. It gets deployed, it gets installed, it gets managed. So at a high level, I'll speak to the software, and then Nirwan can speak to the hardware aspect. But the way that we designed this product is to be as easy to deploy with the best user experience in mind. So you don't have to go ahead and pick pieces apart in order to kludge this thing together. Nirwan?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got several versions of software. You can run it onto a PC. You can run it onto an iPad. Also using the Ricoh interactive whiteboard, especially in meeting room environments, as well as some kind of line of business applications such as the sales example, the sales showcase that I talked about earlier.
Okay. We've got one more question. How many people, this speaks to the capacity, how many people can be working on documents on a campus at the same time?
So technically, there's two different aspects to that. There's a technical aspect and there's a psychological and how we think aspect. From a technical aspect, it's going to be bits and bytes and feeds and what's your bandwidth and all of that type of stuff, because obviously the more data that's being collected, if you're on a dial-up network in a hotel versus hardwired at your home, you're going to get different experiences. But what's the most important aspect is when multiple people are interacting, you rarely find 15 people who want to write at the same time. But the challenge that happens in traditional VC conferences with the host and the participant model is I'm the host right now, I'm speaking, and a participant wants to go ahead and interrupt, and there's never a good time. You're constantly waiting, and 5 minutes pass, and you wanted to write down a small note or circle a mistake that you saw, and that moment has passed. So the ability for you to pick up a pen or a mouse and jot something down onto a canvas, like what we would do in real life. I pick up a whiteboard marker and write something down. Point, let's discuss this. And as a host, I can see that and go, okay, let me pause. And what that does is and this is what Tatiana came back to, is that democratization of that meeting. Not one individual can take over the meeting and completely blow up the time. The opportunity is simultaneously anyone can jump in and jump out without any restriction. So technically, the limitation is bandwidth, but practically speaking, you'll find that more than 3 or 4 people are not going to be working simultaneously all the time. But they can ad hoc jump in, contribute, jump out, and get engaged.
Great, thanks.
Now, there's one more question about Excel files. I can reiterate that if you'd like.
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
Yeah,
the question was, how do Excel files show up? The Excel files actually show up just like any other Word document or PowerPoint document using your native page breaks. So if you have multiple sheets and you paginate inside Excel and drag and drop a page break to say, this is my balance sheet, and on sheet number 2, this is a different page break, we will import that into Reactive exactly like that and allow you to ink on that Excel file and export all of that ink back in order to maintain that hierarchy. So our goal is the author designed a document with certain page breaks, and that's how, and we represent that page break to represent the printed paper, which is the most natural.
Great, thanks. So I'm going to leave, I'm assuming there's no more questions. We'll leave it open a little bit longer. No, there's nothing else. So I want to thank the presenters. And on behalf of the entire Ricoh team, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Just to note that in a moment when you do exit from the meeting, you'll have a chance to provide your feedback on today's session. That feedback is greatly appreciated and goes towards helping us produce even better content and improve the user experience for future webinars. As well, a reminder to please watch your inbox within the next day for a Ricoh email that includes the webinar recording and adds use case videos, as well as information on how to reach one of our communication services professionals to continue the conversation and learn more about how we can help you further adapt to the new world of work. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Bye.